You've held one without knowing its full story, a small copper-colored disc that seems so ordinary, yet hides within it a cascade of history, artistry, error, human hands, and sometimes astonishing value. I'm speaking about the 1990 Lincoln 1-cent coin, the penny minted by the United States Mint in multiple facilities. And today we dive into everything: its design, its components, all its varieties, its known rarities, and just how much some of these coins are really worth in today's market. If you think your coin is just a penny, you might be holding something far more fascinating. Imagine this: the year is 1990. The Cold War is winding down. The Berlin Wall has fallen the year before. Globally, change is in the air. In the United States, everyday life hums along, coin production churns through billions of pieces as usual. Among those is the humble Lincoln penny, still bearing the image of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, still featuring the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, designs that have been with us for decades. Yet some of the 1990 pennies would become rare, even legendary, for reasons largely accidental, subtle, and technical. Start with what every collector looks for first: the design and appearance. On the obverse front, there is the familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln, facing right. Friedrich Victor David Brenner designed this portrait back in 1909, when the Lincoln cent was introduced, to commemorate the centennial of Lincoln's birth. You see, "In God We Trust" above the word Liberty, to his left, the date, 1990, to his right, or rather, over his chest, and below the date, depending on which mint struck it, you may see a mint mark, D or S, or no mint mark, indicating the Philadelphia facility. Brenner's initials, VDB, appear on the obverse as well, on Lincoln's shoulder, a detail originally more prominent in 1909, removed for a period, then restored in smaller form. The reverse, back, shows the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., with the words, "United States of America," across the top, "E pluribus unum," under the arch of the memorial, and then the denomination, 1 cent, at the bottom. The reverse design is by Frank Gasparo and has graced pennies from 1959 until 2008. In terms of physical specifications, the 1990 penny is like many post-1982 Lincoln cents in its metal composition. After 1982, rising copper prices made pure copper pennies too expensive, so the U.S. Mint changed to a sandwich, a core of zinc, 97.5%, with a thin copper plating, 2.5%, on the outside. This gives the coin its copper color, but underneath, it's mostly zinc. Coin value checker +2 Wikipedia +2 Its diameter is about 19.05 millimeters, 3/4 of an inch, its weight around 2.50 grams. The edge is plain, no reading. The finishing surface depends on whether it's a regular circulation coin or a proof coin. Proof coins are struck using polished dies and polished planchets. They tend to have mirror-like backgrounds and frosted raised parts, more contrast, often special, DCM, deep cameo, finishes are particularly coveted. Coin value checker +2 coinidentifier.com +2 In 1990, the U.S. Mint produced Lincoln pennies at 3 facilities: Philadelphia, no mint mark, Denver, D, and San Francisco, S. Philadelphia and Denver struck the coins for circulation. San Francisco struck proof coins, intended for collectors. The number of coins is huge. According to numismatic data, about 6,851,765,000 pennies were struck in Philadelphia with no mint mark, 4,922,894,533 were made in Denver, and about 3,299,559 proof coins from San Francisco. Coin value checker. So for most people, a 1990 penny is exactly what you would expect: very common, very ordinary, worth face value or maybe a few cents above that if in uncirculated condition. But now we come to what makes certain 1990 pennies extremely intriguing: variety, errors, minting anomalies. One of the most famous rarities among the 1990 pennies is the 1990 No S proof penny. This is a proof coin struck at San Francisco in 1990 that, due to an error, lacks the S mint mark that should appear under the date, or nearby depending on die. This was a mistake of the die preparation. Very few were made before the mistake was caught. Estimates suggest that perhaps 3,700 were struck with that no-S die before correction, and of those, many were destroyed once the error was noticed. Survivors are rare. Fewer than maybe 200 are believed to exist in high enough quality. Coin value checker +1. The no-S proof coin is also usually a deep cameo DCM finish, mirror fields, frosted devices, sharp contrast. That sort of finish plus the mint mark absence error combine to make these proofs extremely valuable among collectors. Coin value checker +1. Other varieties. There are the regular circulation pennies from Philadelphia and Denver, the standard proof pennies, different grades, how worn or preserved. There are also error coins, mis-strikes, off-center strikes, perhaps planchets with problems, etc. But among all these, the no-S proof stands out as the big prize. How are coins graded? What do collectors care about? Condition, wear, scratch marks, luster, the quality of the strike, how sharp the details are, for example the hair on Lincoln, the steps of the memorial, etc., how clean the fields, the flat background areas, are, whether there is any toning, damage, etc. For proof coins, proof finish and cameo contrast is a big plus. A high-grade proof, especially rare varieties, can command very high premiums. Now, value. What is a typical 1990 penny worth? For most circulated coins, Philadelphia or Denver, standard issue, modest wear, the value is just the face value, 1 cent, or a few cents above. Maybe 10 to 20 cents if the condition is pretty good. For uncirculated coins, mint state, maybe several dollars. Proof coins with S mint mark, depending on condition, maybe more. But for the rare no-S proof, value escalates dramatically. Reports in coin value guides show that a clean no-S proof DCM 1990 penny might be worth thousands of dollars. In some cases, coins with the no-S error have sold at auction or private sale for amounts in the tens of thousands. Coin value checker +1. Collectors often speak about the thrill of the hunt, the way a tiny glimmer of copper can make your heart race. That thrill has fueled countless hours spent hunched over magnifying glasses, flipping through rolls of pennies pulled from bank boxes, hoping to see that perfect combination of date, mint mark, and flawless strike. In the case of the 1990 penny, especially the elusive no-S proof, it isn't just about finding money, it's about uncovering a piece of minting history that slipped through the cracks, a secret whispered by the machinery of the United States Mint itself. That secret makes people obsess. They imagine the exact moment in 1990 when a single die, missing its S, began striking proof coins intended for collectors. The blank die may have sat on a workbench at the San Francisco Mint, waiting to be used, perhaps overlooked, perhaps mistakenly assumed to be correctly prepared. Then, with a sudden clang and press, it stamped flawless mirror-finish coins, each missing the mark that would tell the world where it came from. Those coins were packaged in proof sets, wrapped in government-sealed plastic, and shipped to collectors around the country. Most who opened them never looked closely. They saw the shine and the perfection, not noticing that a tiny letter was missing. Only years later did the numismatic world realize what had happened. The discovery stories often sound like treasure hunts. One collector in the mid-1990s, so the story goes, bought an unopened 1990 proof set at a small estate sale for a few dollars. He cracked it open just to fill an album slot, glanced at the penny under a desk lamp, and noticed something strange. The date was there, the portrait of Lincoln perfect, the fields mirror-like, but no tiny S beneath the date. At first he assumed it was a smudge. He cleaned his glasses, looked again, and felt his heart pound. He checked a coin book, realized what he might be holding, and sent it off for certification. Weeks later, the coin returned, slabbed and labeled 1990 no-S Lincoln cent proof, deep cameo. That one coin changed his entire collection. What had cost him a few dollars was suddenly worth tens of thousands. That sense of striking gold from something so small drives people to search to this day. The psychology behind these coins is fascinating. Most people see pennies as nearly worthless, something to sweep off countertops or ignore on sidewalks. That makes it even more exhilarating when one of them holds immense value. It's a reversal of expectations, a reminder that value is not about size or weight but about rarity, history, and desire. That desire is powerful. Numismatics is not just collecting metal discs, it is collecting stories, events, and fleeting mistakes that no machine was meant to make. The 1990 US penny is one such mistake, frozen in copper plating and zinc forever. And that mistake has become almost mythic. Collectors whisper about them on forums, trade photographs and certification numbers, track auction appearances, debate how many truly exist, and speculate about the day when one might set a new record. To understand the allure, you have to understand how proof coins differ from regular circulation coins. Proofs are struck using specially polished dies, often multiple strikes, at lower speeds and higher pressures. That produces razor-sharp detail, mirror-like fields, and frosted designs. The edges are perfectly square and clean. Every surface gleams. When a proof is missing something it should have, like a mint mark, it becomes a paradox, a coin that is supposed to embody perfection, yet contains an imperfection born not of wear but of creation itself. That paradox is intoxicating to collectors. It's like finding a flaw in a diamond, not from damage, but from the earth itself. There's another angle, the grading process. Professional grading services like PCGS and NGC use multiple expert graders who examine a coin's surfaces under magnification and bright light. For proof coins, they look at depth of cameo, reflectivity, lack of hairlines or contact marks, strike sharpness, and eye appeal. Grades range from PR60 up to PR70, which denotes absolute perfection with no visible flaws even under magnification. A 1990 US penny graded PR70 deep cameo is an extraordinary sight. Every detail, from the lines in Lincoln's hair to the tiny columns of the memorial, appears etched with microscopic clarity. The fields reflect light like glass. Such a coin appears almost unreal, as though printed by laser, and that visual perfection combined with an impossible minting error makes the brain struggle to reconcile what it's seeing. That's part of why values climb so high. There are maybe only a few dozen known US pennies, and only a handful in such immaculate condition. The rest are slightly less perfect, which still makes them rare and valuable, but the market pays exponentially more for perfection. Then there are the economics of rarity. A rare coin is valuable only if enough collectors desire it, but desire is driven by storytelling and perception. When major coin publications write about the 1990 US penny, they fuel demand. When one comes to auction, it becomes an event, splashed across hobby news. Collectors who have been saving for years bid against each other, and sometimes wealthy investors step in, seeing coins as alternative assets. That demand pushes prices upward, but also creates bubbles. There have been coins that shot up in price after sudden publicity, and then sank again once the frenzy faded. The US penny has held value over decades, which shows its rarity is real and not just hype, but it also shows how belief drives markets. Some sellers on the fringes of the internet exaggerate, claiming values of millions or hundreds of millions, hoping to spark bidding wars or viral attention. Real auction data shows high five-figure and sometimes low six-figure prices for top-grade examples, not nine-figure fortunes. But the myth that a tiny cent could be worth hundreds of millions captures imaginations, and that mythology keeps interest alive. It's also worth remembering the physical reality of these coins. After more than 30 years, even proof coins can deteriorate. Zinc cores can corrode if the copper plating is breached. Improper storage can lead to spots, haze, or discoloration. Many 1990 proof pennies have hazy mirrors now. Only those stored in stable, climate-controlled conditions remain pristine. That means the number of top-grade survivors shrinks slowly every year as coins age and tarnish. Each lost gem makes the remaining flawless ones more valuable. This slow attrition is part of why coins become rarer with time, even if many were originally made. Most people who own them didn't imagine they'd become valuable, so they weren't stored with care. The fact that any 1990 US penny survived in PR70 condition borders on miraculous, And yet millions of people unknowingly handle 1990 pennies daily. They jingle in pockets, clink in change jars, rest in dusty drawers. Any one of them could be the overlooked treasure. That possibility inspires endless searching. Coin roll hunters open boxes of pennies from banks, 50 rolls at a time, each roll with 50 pennies, 2,500 coins per box, and scan every one. They look for the date, for doubling in the lettering or date, for off-center strikes, for missing elements, and especially for the proof-like shine that might hint at something special. It's tedious, repetitive, and obsessive work, but when someone does find something rare, it vindicates years of patience. The story of the 1990 NOS penny fuels that hope like a spark in dry tinder. What most people never realize when they glance at a penny is the staggering scale of the operation that created it. The 1990 Lincoln Memorial cent was struck at such an enormous volume that entire rooms of machinery roared for months, billions of planchets fed into presses, each blank being punched from sheets of copper-plated zinc with astonishing speed. The U.S. Mint's high-speed Schuler presses struck these coins at more than 750 coins per minute, the dies smashing down with tens of tons of pressure, transferring Brenner's portrait of Lincoln onto the obverse and Gasparo's Lincoln Memorial design onto the reverse. Each strike created an incuse impression in the die and a raised design on the coin, with the tiny details of Lincoln's hair, his bow tie, the individual steps and columns of the memorial. After striking, coins passed through vibrating hoppers, then counting machines, then were bagged and shipped out in massive ballistic bags weighing thousands of pounds each, sent to Federal Reserve banks, then to commercial banks, then to stores, cash registers, soda machines, parking meters, and pockets. This is the unseen industrial heartbeat that delivered the little 1-cent discs we so casually toss into tip jars. Because so many coins were produced, defects naturally slipped through, and this is where the seeds of numismatic excitement germinate. Every imperfection, every doubled die, every off-center strike, every clipped planchet is a miniature accident of history. A 1990 cent struck 10% off-center suddenly becomes an oddity, a talking point, worth maybe a few dollars to an era collector. A cent with a broad strike that spread it beyond its usual rim can bring more. A coin with a die crack running like lightning across Lincoln's face or the memorial steps is suddenly not just a penny but a tiny metal artifact of malfunction, frozen mid-blunder. These are the varieties that, while common in broad categories, are unique in their specific patterns, and so they create intrigue and small bursts of extra value. A perfectly centered, perfect 1990 cent is just one of billions. A misaligned or doubled one becomes an individual. The most coveted of all, of course, is the 1990 proof cent struck without the S mint mark. Understanding why this error occurred requires understanding how proof coins are made. Unlike normal business strikes, proof coins are struck on specially prepared planchets that are polished to a mirror finish and handled with gloved care. The dies are also specially polished, and are used for fewer strikes so they stay sharp. The coins are struck at least twice at lower striking speeds to ensure full detail. They are then individually inspected, placed into protective plastic capsules, and assembled into proof sets sold directly to collectors. In 1990, all proof cents were supposed to carry the S mint mark of the San Francisco Mint. But at some point early in the production run, a proof die was mistakenly made without the mint mark. That die was installed in a press and used to strike a small number of proof cents before the error was caught. Those coins went out into proof sets, sealed and shipped, and for years most people didn't notice. It wasn't until collectors began scrutinizing their sets that the discovery emerged: a proof cent dated 1990, with mirror fields and frosted devices, yet missing the telltale S. A ghostly omission. Instantly, those coins became famous. To understand why a coin as tiny and common as a 1991 cent piece can suddenly leap from pocket change to a 5-figure trophy, you have to step into the meticulous and almost obsessive world of professional grading. When a collector finds a coin they think might be special, they don't simply hold it up and guess. They send it to one of the major third-party grading services, institutions like the Professional Coin Grading Service, PCGS, or the Numismatic Guarantee Company, NGC. These firms operate secure laboratories staffed by experts who spend their days peering through high-powered magnification under perfect lighting, studying the minute details of coins. Every tiny nick, hairline scratch, or speck of discoloration is analyzed. They are trained to distinguish between genuine mint luster and artificial polishing, between natural toning and chemical cleaning, between original surfaces and reprocessed metal. These distinctions are microscopic, but they can change value by thousands of dollars. When a 1990 Lincoln cent arrives at one of these services, it goes through a chain of custody. It is logged, given a tracking number, and examined by at least 2 or 3 graders independently to ensure no single human bias determines its fate. They assign it a numerical grade using the Sheldon scale from 1 to 70. For circulation strikes, a 70 means a perfect coin with no marks even under 5x magnification, while 60 is the entry into mint state. For proofs, the same numbers apply, but the designations PR or PF are used. If the coin has strong cameo contrast, where the raised devices are frosted white and the fields are deep mirror black, they add cameo, or deep cameo, designations. For copper coins, they also assess color, red RD, if more than 95% of original mint red luster remains, red-brown, RB, for 5 to 95% red, and brown, BN, for less than 5%. That color assessment alone can change price dramatically. A 1990 cent graded MS68 RD might be worth 20 times what an MS68 BN would fetch, simply because of that blazing original copper glow. Once graded, the coin is encapsulated in a hard tamper-evident plastic holder with a label showing its grade, date, mint mark, and any special designations or varieties, like No S. This slab seals its condition forever. It also plugs the coin into the vast ecosystem of population reports, where collectors can see exactly how many examples exist at each grade. PCGS, for instance, might show that there are only 3 1990 No S proofs graded PR69 DCM, and none higher. That scarcity data fuels value. If only 3 exist at the top, wealthy collectors compete to own them, because having the best is a badge of honor. Prices spike not just from rarity in absolute numbers, but from rarity at the highest grades. This is called condition rarity, and it drives huge premiums. These population reports are like stock market tickers for coins. Collectors watch them obsessively, looking for tiny shifts. If someone cracks out a coin to resubmit it for a higher grade and succeeds, the population at the new grade goes up by 1 and the lower grade goes down by 1. That tiny move can ripple across the market. Suddenly, the population of PR69 DCM 1990 No S cents rises from 3 to 4, and prices soften slightly because exclusivity has diluted. Conversely, if years go by and no new top-grade coins appear, prices tighten upward because collectors perceive stability and rarity. It is a delicate dance of numbers, psychology, and scarcity. Grading also shields against counterfeits, which matter in high-value coins. While faking a modern penny seems silly, the higher the rumored value climbs, the more it attracts counterfeiters. There have been cases where unscrupulous individuals attempted to alter regular 1990 proof cents by removing the S mint mark to fake the No S error. Experts can detect this by examining the surface where the mint mark should be, looking for signs of tooling, polishing, or microscopic disturbances. That is why buyers pay premiums for coins authenticated and slabbed by trusted services, because they know what they are buying is real. This trust underpins the entire market, and from this foundation of grading, population data, and authentication, the psychology of high prices grows. Humans are naturally drawn to what is rare, especially if it can be owned and displayed. A 1990 No S proof penny is tiny, but encapsulated in a crystal-clear slab with a bold label, it becomes an object of prestige. Some collectors chase sets, trying to build the finest known registry set of Lincoln cents by year and mint. The registry system awards points for each coin based on grade, and collectors compete publicly, their sets ranked online. This gamifies collecting, turning it into a contest, and in contests, prices often detach from logic. Someone who desperately needs a PR 69 DCM 1990 NOS cent to complete the number 1 rank set might pay far above what casual collectors think is rational, just to secure victory. This competition can push single coins to stratospheric prices, and this is the fertile soil in which myths sprout. To an outsider, hearing that a penny sold for $20,000 already sounds insane. It's a small jump for a misinformed headline to inflate that to $200,000, then $2 million, then $208 million. Numbers get exaggerated as they bounce from site to site, stripped of context, because the bigger the number, the more attention it draws. Thumbnails on videos show glowing pennies and titles screaming, "This 1990 penny is worth $208 million!" to bait clicks. Most viewers don't read beyond the headline. The myth spreads, self-replicating, because it is exciting to imagine. That is how an ordinary cent becomes a digital legend worth hundreds of millions in rumor, but only a few thousand in reality. Ironically, the very structure of the market encourages this. Because there really are examples that went from 1 cent face value to tens of thousands at auction, it feels plausible that they could go even higher. People have seen sports cards, comic books, and NFTs explode in value, so they project the same possibility onto coins. And the fact that the rare coin is visually indistinguishable to the untrained eye from a common one adds to the allure. It suggests hidden treasure, a secret lottery ticket lying unseen in your change jar. This lottery mentality fuels searches. Millions of people scan their 1990 pennies, most finding nothing, a few finding pristine examples worth a few dollars, an infinitesimal handful finding a no-S proof worth thousands. Each success story reignites the frenzy. And each frenzy invites a new wave of exaggerated claims. It is a loop. Meanwhile, serious numismatists quietly catalog and study these coins with rigor. They analyze die varieties, study die markers, track known specimens, publish census data, and refine the history. They know exactly how many 1990 no-S proofs have been confirmed. They know their grades, their auction histories, their previous owners. They can trace pedigrees. This documentation anchors the truth beneath the storm of myths. To them, the idea of a $208 million penny is laughable, but they also understand why people are captivated by it. Because in the end, even seasoned experts remember the spark that drew them into coins in the first place. The magical idea that something ordinary could secretly be extraordinary. And so grading, population reports, collector psychology, and myth intertwine. The 1990 penny sits at the crossroads of them all. It is the perfect candidate for obsession, modern enough to still be lurking in change, common enough that anyone could own one, yet with a single rare variant that turns the mundane into treasure. That is the paradox that drives this market. And as long as that paradox exists, rumors will swirl, values will fluctuate, and somewhere someone will whisper about a penny worth $208 million, and somewhere else, someone with a loupe will smile and keep searching, because they know the real magic is not in the number but in the hunt. The real theater of value, the stage where numbers suddenly leap from modest to staggering, is the auction floor. This is where coins cease to be quiet artifacts in drawers and become gladiators in the arena of competition. When a 1990 penny, especially a rare variety like the no-S proof, enters a major numismatic auction, it steps into an atmosphere charged with anticipation. The room may be hushed, a row of bidders at desks, eyes fixed on the screen, or it may be a digital space, thousands of bidders connected remotely from across the world, each watching the same coin appear on their screen framed in glowing light. The auctioneer's voice becomes a drumbeat, numbers cascading upward, and for a moment, this tiny disk of copper-plated zinc becomes the focus of an entire global market's attention. Auction houses like Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers, or Great Collections know how to cultivate that drama. They photograph the coin under flawless lighting, magnifying its fields until the tiniest details gleam, then describe it in language that mixes science and poetry. The description might read, 1990 Lincoln Cent no-S proof, PR 69 DCM, blazing mirrors, frosted devices, needle-sharp strike, among the finest known. These words are carefully chosen to inflame desire. The lot is previewed for weeks, discussed in forums, whispered about in collector circles. People study population reports to see how many exist at that grade, check previous sales to gauge precedent, and then steel themselves to bid. By the time the auctioneer begins, emotions have been simmering for weeks, and that is the moment when rationality begins to erode. Bidding often starts modestly, but once 2 or 3 determined bidders lock horns, the price climbs with a rhythm that feels inevitable. Each new bid erases the memory of the last. At first it is just a number on a screen, but as it climbs, adrenaline starts to thrum. The bidders are no longer calculating rational fair value. They are locked in competition, fighting for victory. They imagine the coin in their own collection, imagine the prestige of owning it, imagine telling their peers that they won. Ego merges with desire. One bids 5,000, the other 5,500, then 6,000, then 7, and as the numbers rise, the logic of the marketplace transforms. The price is no longer about the coin's objective value. It is about who wants it more in that precise moment. This is how coins break price records, not through steady appraisal, but through emotion erupting in real time. When the hammer finally falls and the auctioneer declares it sold, the number becomes history. It is recorded forever as the sale price. And from that moment forward, that sale becomes a benchmark. Price guides update, market databases log it, articles report it, and suddenly the perceived value of all similar coins shifts upward because one person was willing to pay that much. This creates what collectors call the comp. A comp is a comparable sale, and it anchors market psychology. If the previous record for a 1990 no-S proof was $15,000 and one just sold for $22,000, future sellers will aim for 20 or more. Buyers will expect to pay that. The sale reshapes the landscape. This is why individual sales have outsized impact. They do not just move one coin, they move the entire mental map of value. Sometimes this leads to spectacular price bubbles. A rare coin hits auction, hype builds, 2 wealthy collectors duel, the price explodes far beyond any previous level, and for a moment the world believes that this is the new normal. But often it is not. When the fever passes and the coin is resold years later, it may bring less. This cycle happens across all collectibles. Yet while bubbles can deflate, the headline numbers linger in memory, and it is those headline numbers that fuel myths. Someone hears, "A 1990 penny sold at auction," and someone else adds, "For millions," and soon the number morphs from 20,000 to 200 million as it bounces through the echo chambers of rumor. Auction drama feeds the myth machine because the real numbers, though smaller, are still astonishing compared to a penny's face value, and the jump from astonishing to impossible is short in the human imagination. Another curious thing happens after record sales. The new high price flushes hidden coins out of collections. Someone who has had a 1990 no-S proof tucked away for decades sees the news of a big sale and decides now is the time to sell. They submit it for grading, it comes back PR 68 DCM, and it enters the next auction. This wave of new supply can temporarily flood the market and soften prices. But to the public, who only saw the initial headline, it appears that these coins are all worth that same record figure. So when an ordinary 1990 penny from a pocket shows up on a newsfeed next to that headline, the myth that they are all worth millions grows stronger. This is how auction dynamics unintentionally inflate public perception. The market insiders understand the nuances, the grades, the population scarcity, the condition premiums, but the casual viewer just sees a year and a price, and assumes all 1990 cents must be treasure. The physical setting of auctions adds to this mystique. Imagine a glass case at a coin show, velvet-lined, glowing under halogen lights, with a single penny in a plastic slab inside. People gather around, pointing, whispering. It looks like a museum artifact. The presentation signals importance. When it is carried to the auction block, sometimes with white-gloved hands, the ritual frames it as precious. This ceremonial aura transforms how people perceive it. A 2.5-gram piece of metal that you could find on a sidewalk is now treated like a Fabergé egg. And perception often drives value more powerfully than objective rarity. Humans are visual creatures. When something is presented like treasure, we start to believe it is treasure, and we behave accordingly. That belief pushes bids higher. And those high bids reinforce the belief. It is a self-reinforcing cycle. Some of the highest profile sales in numismatics were driven almost entirely by this psychology of spectacle. When the 1933 Double Eagle sold for over $18 million, much of the price was not just the gold content or the rarity, but the legend, the mystique, the aura. The same principle, scaled down, applies to the 1990 penny. The difference is that myths have amplified it even further. Once a coin has crossed into public imagination, logic takes a back seat. Someone sees a penny and hears it might be worth 200 million, and the sheer absurdity of that number becomes part of the appeal. It becomes a story worth telling, and stories are more powerful than price guides. This is how myths survive even in the face of contradictory evidence. The market might say 20,000, the rumor says 200 million, and the rumor wins hearts even as the market wins wallets. Yet beneath the glamour and myth, the reality of the auction market is cold and methodical. Bidders register, show proof of funds, sign terms. The auctioneer charges buyers premiums, sometimes 20% on top of the hammer price. Payments are wired, coins are shipped in armored vans or hand-delivered by bonded couriers. The transaction is rooted in contracts and logistics. This mechanical infrastructure underpins the fevered drama. Without it, the whole system would collapse. And it is this infrastructure, invisible to the casual observer, that makes the market real. A rumor of a $208 million penny may swirl online, but until a bidder wires $208 million into an auctioneer's bank and the coin changes hands, the number is only vapor. In auctions, only money on the table makes a price real. This is the line between fantasy and fact. Still, the fantasy will always hover just above the facts, because auctions are emotional theater. They transform collecting into sport, turn history into spectacle, and crown champions. And in that spectacle, a 1990 Lincoln cent, humble and common, can rise to become a star. It does not need to actually sell for $208 million to captivate imaginations. It only needs to make people believe it might. That belief is the spark that ignites the hunt, that sends millions of eyes scanning millions of pennies, hoping to pluck glory from obscurity. And even when reality corrects the myth, the hunt continues, because what people truly crave is not the number, but the dream. And as the final gavel falls in a coin auction room, something subtle but powerful begins to ripple through the marketplace. The price realized, the winning bid, becomes more than just a number on a screen. It becomes a new benchmark, a psychological anchor around which perception orbits. When a 1990 no-S proof penny sells for $20,000, every other owner of that variety recalibrates their own expectations. Collectors who once thought their coins were worth $5,000 now imagine 10, and those who paid 10 begin telling themselves they made a bargain. This anchoring effect is one of the strongest invisible forces in numismatics, shaping the trajectory of value almost as much as supply and demand. The auction hall becomes a stage where numbers perform like actors, and once they have spoken, the echo lingers. Dealers watch these sales with predatory attentiveness, scanning results for opportunities. If prices surge, they begin offering to buy raw examples from the public, hoping to find high-grade coins they can submit for certification and flip for profit. If a coin sets a record price, advertisements bloom overnight, proclaiming the variety to be hot, scarce, soaring. Sometimes this creates a feedback loop where demand outruns reality. Prices spiral upward for a time, and then inevitably soften as the frenzy cools. The 1990 cent has danced at the edge of this cycle, riding waves of excitement whenever another no-S proof surfaces. Even whispers of a new discovery can spark a mini rally as collectors rush to secure what they can before prices climb. These waves can last weeks or months before calming, but each one leaves the baseline value slightly higher than before, like tides slowly lifting the shore. In the background, population reports update, auction records archive each sale, and the long memory of the numismatic world preserves every movement. Collectors pore over these archives, tracing the pedigree of coins like genealogists tracing bloodlines. They can tell you which auction a specific 1990 no-S proof appeared in, what grade it held then, who bought it, how long they held it, and what it realized the next time it surfaced. Some of these coins develop reputations, almost personalities, known by nicknames or the names of famous collections they once belonged to. A coin might be called the Eliasberg specimen or the Newman specimen, carrying the aura of its prior guardians. This sense of continuity, of an object traveling through decades of careful hands, adds another invisible layer of value that no catalog can quantify but every serious collector feels. Outside this sphere, the myth machine churns on. Articles circulate with fantastical numbers, breathless claims that a 1990 penny has sold for $208 million, which seasoned collectors know is impossible but which casual viewers find thrilling. These stories tap into something deep and human, the same impulse that makes people buy lottery tickets or dig for gold. The idea that unimaginable wealth might be hidden in something ordinary is intoxicating. It doesn't matter that the highest confirmed price for any 1990 cent is in the tens of thousands, not hundreds of millions. The allure lies in the possibility, however illusory. And so people keep searching their change jars, peering at pennies through scratched plastic magnifiers, hoping lightning might strike. Every clickbait video, every viral post, renews this hope, feeding the perpetual cycle of discovery and disappointment. Meanwhile, the actual economics of the coin market remain as measured and intricate as clockwork. Prices rise not on rumors but on the steady interplay of scarcity and demand. A 1990 Philadelphia cent in mint state 67 red might have thousands of known examples, so it brings a modest premium. One in 68 red might have only a few dozen, so it brings hundreds. A no-S proof in PR 69 DCM might have only 3 or 4, so it brings tens of thousands. Each step up in grade compresses the population and expands the price. This is why collectors sometimes spend years upgrading one slot in their sets, selling off lesser examples to finance a slightly finer one. To the outside world this seems obsessive, but to the collector it is the purest expression of the hobby, the endless pursuit of perfection in miniature, and yet perfection is fragile. A single hairline scratch can drop a proof coin from PR 69 to PR 68, slicing its value in half. A tiny fingerprint left by careless handling can permanently dull a field, stripping away hundreds or thousands of dollars in potential. This fragility adds to the tension and allure. Owners of high-value 1990 cents often store them in climate-controlled vaults, wrapped in archival materials, their slabs handled only with cotton gloves. They are treated less like coins and more like museum artifacts, which in a sense they are. Every moment they survive unscathed increases their rarity as pristine survivors from an age when billions were made to be spent and forgotten. That survival, paradoxically, is what transforms them from money into something beyond money, and in that transformation lies the deeper truth behind all the myths. Number 1990 penny will likely ever be worth $208 million, but for the people who chase them, the real value is not measured in dollars at all. It is measured in the thrill of the hunt, the satisfaction of discovery, the quiet pride of holding something rare and beautiful that most of the world overlooks. Each coin becomes a tiny vessel of history, a reminder of Lincoln's legacy, of the mint's craft, of the countless invisible hands that shaped it and passed it on. The market may measure these things in numbers, but the heart measures them in wonder, and that is the one currency that never devalues. Long before it became the focus of bidding wars and viral myths, the penny held a quiet but powerful place in the culture, woven into the fabric of daily life so completely that it almost disappeared from notice. It is the smallest coin in circulation, yet perhaps the most instantly recognizable, the warm copper glint that even a child knows is money. There is something about its size that invites affection. It is the first coin many children ever hold, the one they drop into piggy banks or line up on windowsills. Generations have learned to count using pennies, stacking them into piles of 10 and trading them for nickels. Because of this, pennies carry nostalgia, the soft weight of early memory, and that emotional resonance gives them an outsized place in the imagination. A penny might buy nothing today, yet it still feels like a symbol of possibility. It is no accident that Americans still say a penny for your thoughts, that they make wishes over fountains by tossing pennies into the water, or that they think of a lucky penny found face up as a sign of fortune. The coin has become talismanic, a tiny token of chance. People who would never stop to pick up a nickel will still stoop for a penny if it glints just right in the sun, because it feels like a message from the universe. This instinct, this superstition, lingers even though the economic logic of the penny has faded. It is worth less than the metal it costs to mint, it clutters cash drawers and pockets, yet it endures because it has become something more than currency. It is an idea, a charm, and ideas cannot be devalued by inflation. That is why the notion of a single 1990 penny being worth $208 million has such magnetic pull. It fuses the talismanic with the unimaginable. The smallest and most ignored thing turning out to be the key to staggering wealth feels like a fable, and humans are wired to love fables. Every culture has its version of the lowly thing becoming precious, the pebble that becomes a gem, the beggar who becomes a king. The myth of the priceless penny is just a modern echo of that ancient archetype. It endures not because it is true but because it is emotionally true. It expresses a longing that lives deep in people, the longing that maybe they, like the penny, might secretly be extraordinary though the world overlooks them, and this emotional undercurrent feeds the obsession. When someone digs through a jar of old coins looking for a 1990 NOS proof, they are not just hunting metal. They are chasing a moment of transformation, a revelation that something common is rare and something forgotten is treasured. That hope gives meaning to the search even when it yields nothing. The myth persists because the hope persists. Even seasoned collectors who know the true value still feel a flicker of this hope when they scan dates, because they remember the childlike wonder of their first discoveries. The market speaks in dollars, but the heart speaks in wonder, and wonder is what keeps people looking long after logic says to stop. This is also why the penny resists elimination. For decades, economists have argued that the US should retire it, pointing out that it costs more to produce than it is worth, that it wastes time in transactions, that inflation has eroded its usefulness. Other countries have phased out their smallest coins, but the penny endures because the public will not let it go. People cling to it not because they need it but because they feel attached to it. It carries Lincoln's face, a symbol of integrity and unity, and it carries the memory of childhood, and it carries this quiet superstition that finding one might bring luck. Even if logic says it is obsolete, emotion says it is sacred. That emotion is what allows myths to take root so easily. So the 1990 penny becomes a vessel for much more than its physical reality. It is a 2.5-gram disc of copper-plated zinc, yes, but it is also a symbol of memory, luck, hope, and hidden potential. When someone says it could be worth $208 million, they are really saying that anything could be more than it seems, that the overlooked could be miraculous. That belief, even if misplaced, is not foolish. It is what drives people to discover, to search, to look closer at the world. It is what drives collectors to comb through change and historians to study archives and dreamers to believe they might hold something extraordinary without knowing it yet. The myth of the priceless penny endures because it touches something true about human nature, the desire to find greatness in the smallest things. And in this way, the penny is more than just currency, it is a mirror. It reflects how people see value not just as a number but as a story, and the story of the 1990 penny has become an allegory of hidden worth. Most will never hold a 1990 NOS proof, and none will ever hold a penny worth $208 million, but all who search for them touch that feeling of wonder, and in that sense they have already found something precious. That is why, even if the penny vanishes from circulation someday, its legend will remain, glimmering in the imagination long after its metal is gone. When people glance at a penny, they rarely stop to consider whose face gazes back at them, but the choice of Lincoln was no accident and no mere decoration. It was an act of national storytelling, a decision to place one of the country's most revered figures on its smallest coin. In 1909, when the centennial of Lincoln's birth approached, there was debate over how to honor him. The idea of putting a real person's portrait on circulating U.S. coinage was radical then. Every coin until that point bore allegorical figures like Liberty, never actual historical individuals. But Lincoln was different. He had become more than a man. He had become a symbol of unity, of sacrifice, of moral courage in the face of division. Choosing his face for the cent was a way of binding the nation's lowest denomination to its highest ideals. And so Victor David Brenner sculpted the portrait that still graces the obverse today. He did not depict Lincoln as triumphant or grand, but as solemn, thoughtful, with furrowed brow and weary eyes, the lines of responsibility etched into his face. It was not the portrait of a conqueror but of a man who bore the weight of holding a fractured nation together. That expression, captured in miniature, has passed through more hands than any other portrait in American history, seen billions of times, unnoticed, and yet omnipresent. Every penny carries that silent testimony to endurance, and that presence gives the coin a quiet gravity beyond its worth in cents. This connection to Lincoln shapes how people feel about the penny in ways they might not consciously realize. It makes the coin feel honest, humble, enduring, like the man himself. Even those who know nothing of numismatics know Lincoln as the president who freed the enslaved, preserved the Union, and died for the country's ideals. To have his image on the humblest coin is to suggest that greatness can dwell in smallness, that dignity can hide in the overlooked. This symbolism resonates deeply, and it is part of why myths of astronomical value attach themselves to pennies so easily. If Lincoln rose from obscurity to greatness, perhaps his coin can too. The story of Lincoln becomes the story of the penny, underestimated, unassuming, yet secretly monumental, and this symbolism intensifies with age. By 1990, Lincoln had been on the cent for over 80 years, longer than any portrait had ever stayed on a U.S. coin, and his image had become a fixture so constant that it vanished into the background, which paradoxically only deepened its symbolic weight. People stopped seeing him consciously, yet felt his presence. His face became like the heartbeat of American currency, steady and unseen, and that familiarity made the penny feel trustworthy even as its economic usefulness waned. It became the emblem of small honest things, the quiet virtues Lincoln embodied. So when rumors claim a single 1990 penny could be worth $208 million, the leap seems almost poetic. Lincoln himself was once dismissed as small and provincial before revealing monumental greatness. The myth borrows the arc of his life, mapping it onto the coin that bears his likeness. Even the reverse design reinforced this symbolism. From 1959 until 2008, the cents reverse showed the Lincoln Memorial, a temple of stone built to honor him, with a tiny engraving of his seated statue visible between the columns if viewed under magnification. That detail is almost invisible, and most people never notice it, yet it is there, a secret within the ordinary. That too mirrors the mythology of the penny itself, the notion that something immense could be hidden in something small. The fact that the 1990 cent still bore this design links it to that symbolic thread. The physical structure that enshrines Lincoln was engraved on the back of the coin that carries his face on the front, like a loop, a self-contained monument small enough to fit in a child's palm. No other coin carries its subject and that subject's memorial together in one design. That uniqueness gives the Lincoln cent a self-referential gravity unmatched in U.S. coinage. All of this symbolism feeds the emotional charge that makes the penny ripe for myths of unimaginable value. It is not just a coin, it is a token of Lincoln's spirit, of the belief that greatness can wear humble clothes. The 1990 penny, though made in the billions, inherits this aura, and when a rare variant like the no-S proof surfaces, it seems to fulfill the coin's symbolic promise that something small and overlooked can turn out to be priceless. The market assigns tens of thousands of dollars to it, and the imagination inflates that further to hundreds of millions, because that exaggeration fits the emotional shape of the story. Lincoln rose from a log cabin to the presidency. Why should his coin not rise from a cent to a fortune? The myth feels true even if it isn't, because it echoes the arc of Lincoln's life. This is why the penny resists obsolescence while larger denominations come and go. It is bound not just to commerce but to identity, not just to value but to virtue. The 1990 cent carries that inheritance, and so it continues to inspire fascination, collecting, hoarding, dreaming. People tuck them into drawers, glue them to souvenirs, polish them for keepsakes, not because they are worth money but because they mean something. They are fragments of Lincoln's story, fragments of the nation's story, disguised as trivial change. And in that disguise they hold power, because the world's most enduring myths often hide in plain sight. The legend of the $208 million penny is only the loudest echo of that deeper truth, that within the smallest things, the greatest meanings often dwell unseen. Time leaves its fingerprints on every coin, and the 1990 penny is no exception. When it first left the mint presses, each cent shone with a bright coppery luster, its mirrored fields gleaming, its raised devices sharp and crisp. But copper-plated zinc is fragile, and the world is rough. The moment a penny enters circulation, it begins its slow surrender to time. Microscopic scratches bloom across its surface as it clinks against other coins. The copper dulls, the shine fades, and eventually the metal darkens to a soft brown, sometimes almost black, as air and oils react with it. What was once a flawless newborn artifact becomes a worn veteran of pockets, purses, and countertops. Each mark is a record of countless invisible moments: bus fares paid, vending machines fed, hands exchanged. The coin carries the trace of human life like a fossil carries the imprint of ancient motion. This aging gives even the most common penny a strange gravity. It is no longer just a stamped disc, it is a witness. A 1990 cent found today in circulation may have passed through thousands of hands across decades. It might have written in the pocket of a high school student during the first days of the internet, been dropped on a convenience store floor the week the Berlin Wall fell, sat forgotten in a desk drawer as entire eras turned. This is the hidden romance of coins. They move silently through the world, accumulating unseen history. Even the worn and battered specimens carry a weight of time that cannot be replicated. A freshly struck coin is perfect, but a well-circulated one is storied, and that story creates a subtle aura that collectors feel even if they cannot name it. Yet paradoxically, the same aging that gives a penny narrative also erodes its market value. In numismatics, condition reigns supreme, and the marketplace prizes the illusion of timelessness. The rarer and older the coin, the more dramatic this tension becomes. A 1990 cent in mint state 68 red appears as though time has never touched it, as if it leapt directly from 1990 into the present without aging a day. That defiance of time is what makes it valuable. It is not just a coin, it is 1990 itself, frozen and preserved. That is why collectors store them in airtight holders, why they handle them with cotton gloves, why they shield them from light and air. They are not only buying metal, they are buying the preservation of a moment. Time diminishes most pennies but magnifies the few that escape its reach. This tension between aging and preservation mirrors the way people see their own lives. Everyone ages, and everything they touch wears down, but there is an impulse to hold on to the pristine, to protect small perfect things from time's corrosion. A flawless 1990 penny embodies that wish. It is proof that something can survive unchanged, that not everything must decay. That is part of why the myth of the 1990 penny worth $208 million resonates. It suggests that this tiny piece of the past might transcend time so completely that it becomes priceless, that it might grow in worth as everything else fades. Even though no such value exists, the myth satisfies an emotional yearning, that something small and mortal might escape mortality and become eternal. And yet there is beauty in the worn coins too, and serious collectors know it. Toning can sometimes create iridescent hues on a 1990 cent, blues and violets shimmering across the copper like oil on water. These colors are born of slow chemical reactions over decades, the metal conversing with air molecule by molecule. Such coins become accidental artworks, unique and unrepeatable. While the market rewards bright red luster, some collectors quietly cherish these toned pieces as expressions of time's artistry. They see not loss but transformation, not decay but evolution. A flawless coin is a frozen instant. A toned coin is a painting made by time itself. In this way, time can add value of a different sort, not monetary, but poetic. This is why even the humblest 1990 penny can feel like more than it is. Whether bright or worn, pristine or tarnished, it carries time within it. It is a miniature clock that does not tick but still marks the passing of years through its changing face. People sense this, even if only subconsciously. When they hold an old penny, they are not just holding metal, they are touching years. That contact creates a flicker of awe, the awareness of something that has endured. And that awe is what myths feed on. The claim that one of these coins could be worth $208 million is not believed literally by most who hear it, but it is felt emotionally, because time itself feels priceless, and anything that holds decades in its skin feels like it could be worth anything at all. And so the 1990 penny, however common, carries the paradox of all old things: the longer it survives, the more it seems to matter, even if its market price says otherwise. A collector sees more than scratches and dullness. They see a survivor, a witness, a fragment of vanished years. That perception is why they keep searching through rolls, keep examining coins under magnification, keep chasing the dream of the one perfect survivor that defied time and became fortune. The myth of the $208 million penny is just the loudest echo of this quieter truth, that time transforms all things, and that transformation can make even the smallest things feel infinite. Sometimes, the most extraordinary pennies are not the ones that survived perfectly but the ones that were born imperfect. Errors are the wild cards of the minting world, the rare moments when the rigid machinery of mass production falters for an instant, and leaves behind a coin that does not match its billions of siblings. In 1990, when presses at Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco were striking millions of cents per day, even a tiny lapse could produce something strange. A blank planchet might slip and slightly misaligned and be struck off-center, leaving Lincoln's portrait drifting toward the rim with part of the design missing in a crescent of blank metal. Two planchets might feed into the press at once, causing an overlapping double strike. Occasionally, a cent might be struck on the wrong metal altogether, on a dime planchet or a foreign coin blank, creating an object that should not exist, a mechanical miracle. These errors are accidental art, and collectors prize them fiercely. Most are caught and destroyed by the mint's quality control, but a few escape into circulation like escaped spirits, waiting to be discovered. When someone finds one, it can transform a coin worth 1 cent into one worth hundreds or thousands. The market for errors is driven by fascination as much as by rarity. Each one is a story, evidence of chaos slipping through the iron order of the minting process. In the vast uniformity of billions of identical coins, an error is an act of rebellion, and that rebellion makes it precious. A dramatic 1990 off-center strike can command hundreds. A 1990 cent struck on a copper planchet leftover from 1982 can reach thousands. And the rare proof cents missing the S mint mark, the famous 1990 no S variety, can soar past 20,000 at auction. These are the sparks that ignite legends. It is from this world of errors that the myth of the 1990 penny worth $208 million draws its power. The story whispers that perhaps one coin escaped with an unimaginable mistake, something so singular and shocking that its value defies calculation. No such coin has ever been confirmed, but the idea is tantalizing because it is not wholly impossible. Every great discovery once seemed impossible before it was found. People love to believe that somewhere, in a forgotten jar or dusty drawer, lies a misborn penny waiting to upend the world. The mind leaps from the real $20,000 no S proof to the imagined $100 million phantom, and the boundary between fact and dream blurs just enough to keep the myth alive. It is not logic that sustains the legend but longing, and so collectors keep searching. They examine 1990 pennies under bright lamps and magnifiers, tilting them to catch the light, scanning for doubled dies, missing letters, clipped planchets, anything that might mark their coin as chosen. They sift through bank rolls, flea market boxes, attic hoards, chasing the faint hope of the miracle find. Most will discover nothing rarer than a nice red uncirculated cent, but that does not dull their resolve. The search itself becomes the reward, the quiet thrill of looking closer at something everyone else overlooks. It is this devotion that keeps the world of numismatics alive, the belief that even among the smallest and humblest objects, wonders may hide, and that is the truest secret of the 1990 penny. It is not worth $208 million, and it probably never will be. Its metal is base, its mintage vast, its market price small except for a few rare varieties. Yet it holds something more enduring than money. It holds memory, history, hope, time, and the dream of discovery. It carries Lincoln's weary, steadfast face and the whisper that greatness can wear humble clothes. It reminds us that even the smallest things can matter, that even the most common object can conceal a hidden story, that even in a world of mass sameness, uniqueness still slips through. The 1990 penny is a fragment of the everyday that has become a vessel for myth, and that is its real treasure. So when someone hears that a 1990 penny might be worth hundreds of millions and smiles at the impossibility, they are not really believing in the number. They are believing in the possibility. They are believing that the overlooked might turn out to be extraordinary, that fortune might hide in plain sight, that a single small coin might change everything. And in a way, that belief is worth more than any price ever could be. Because long after the market forgets the bidding records and the auctions fade from memory, the myth will remain, glowing softly in the imagination, turning every 1990 penny into a tiny spark of wonder. And maybe that is what people are really searching for, not money, but that spark. The moment when something small becomes infinite. The moment when the world reminds them that even the least among things can hold the greatest of dreams.